So after I did my video for the prove it for week 5, the prove assignment for week 5, somebody accurately pointed out that most members of the class have no background for classes and objects, and I slipped into that because the template code we were given defined a class, and so I just kind of jumped on that and started working with it. And so I wanted to try to give some information about classes and objects, and this is my third attempt at making this video because I found I was rambling and not giving useful information. So we're going to see if I can give some useful information. A class defines a new type. Okay, so once you define a class, that means it is a new type that you can use in the programming language. Just like any other type, then you can create instances of a class. So let's come up with a person class, okay? So we're going to define a person. And a person may have associated with it name, age, and gender. There we go. That immediately puts me at odds with the politically correct world out there, doesn't it? Okay. So let's just kind of say, so person is the class. A person has a name, an age, and a gender. And so if I create a person down here, we're going to name this person John, and this person's age is 62, and the person's gender is male. Then we're going to create another person over here, and we're going to name this person Sally, and Sally's age is 35, and Sally's gender is female. And so these are two distinct objects, but they both are of the same type. They're of type person. Okay? And so let's say that we might want to have some behavior for a person, and the behavior we're going to define is introduce self. Okay? And of course in programming, behaviors are functions. So a person is going to have an introduce self method. And if we invoke the introduce self method on Sally, it will say, "Hi, my name is Sally." If we invoke the introduce self method on John, it will say, "Hi, my name is John." So let's see what that might look like in code. So we use the keyword class, and we're going to call our class person. And some people capitalize class names, others don't. I don't know what the general habit is in Python, but we'll ignore that for a moment. And Python defines behaviors and attributes differently. There's no way directly to say a person has a name and an age and a gender. We have to put that inside of a behavior which has a special name. It's called init. And init is the function that is called when you create a new person, in this case, an element of this class. And there's a magic parameter called self that we don't supply. Python supplies that itself. But we have to supply the name, the age, and the gender when we're going to create a person. Now, once we're inside of this init method or function, now we can define variables that belong to the object. We do that by saying self dot my name equals name. So that means that the self variable, which is this magic variable that represents the object itself, now has some data associated with it named my name, or a variable named my name, and we give it the value of the name that was passed in. And likewise, we'll say self.myAge equals age. Now, there's nothing magic about saying my age. We could name it age. But for purposes of trying to keep them separate from each other, I'm giving it a different name. I'm calling it my age. Just to show that the parameter passed in named age gets assigned to a different variable associated with whatever the object is named self. So self.myAge. And then I'm going to have a self.myGender, if I can spell it, which I probably can't, equals gender. And so that defines the instance of a person. Then we said there's got to be an introduce self method or function. And again, it just takes this magic variable self, and it's going to say print. We're going to use the format string because I like those so much. Hello, my name is, and then we put in self.myname to refer to that bit of data that's associated with the object. Okay? So now I can create an object. So let's call it person1, and we have to give it a name, which we said was John, an age, which is 62, and a gender, which is male. And then we can say person2 equals person Sally, and Sally is 35 and is a female. And now if I say person1 dot introduce self, notice again that self variable is magic. I don't have to provide it. It's provided by this syntax where I'm referring to the object instance person1 and asking person1 to introduce themselves. So if we save this out, because it doesn't matter how correct your code is if you don't write it out, right? Python, and it says, hello, my name is John. And if I ask person2 to introduce self, and we run it, we get, hello, my name is John, hello, my name is Sally. And so John, so person1 and person2 that we would typically refer to as John and Sally are both instances of the person class. They share certain characteristics. Each of them has a my name, my age, and my gender attribute associated with them. Each of them knows how to introduce themselves. And what's another behavior that we might expect of a person? And so you'll notice that these defs are for special functions inside of the class person. If I can also create a function like that, and it says, I'm just going to copy this from up here to show maybe confusion or maybe clarification. So I can define an introduce self function like that, but notice this is not actually related to the person class. It's just another function sitting by itself out here. And so if I say, well, curiously, because of the way I've written this, I could say, person1 introduce self is always going to refer to this method up here, not this function down here. Okay, and so this is really kind of meaningless. Even though I use the magic name self, it's not all that magic. Down here it would just refer to whatever thing was passed in as self. And so if I say introduce self 3, we'll get an error because it says 3 doesn't have an attribute my name. And so the importance of these being defined inside of person is that now self refers to an object of type person, where we don't have that guarantee anywhere else. All right. And so once we've developed the idea of a class, which defines a type, which has data associated with it and behaviors, and I said I was going to introduce another behavior. Let's suppose we wanted to introduce the behavior, and we call it def age 1 year. We're going to call it have birthday. How's that? Okay. So when a person has a birthday, we don't expect their name to change, we don't expect their gender to change, but their age should increment by 1, right? So now we're going to say self dot my age plus equals 1. All right. And let's see, def tell age self, so we're going to have another behavior in here to report on one's age. Print if I am self dot my age years old. So now if I say person 1 dot tell age, and I try to run that, I said I am 62 years old, which in this mess is kind of not very informative because it's not obvious from looking at the output that that's related to John and not Sally. But maybe we'll just stick with John for a moment. Now if we say person 1 dot have birthday, person 1 tell age, now we can see I am 62 years old, now I am 63 years old. And so having a birthday caused person 1 to modify himself by incrementing his age by 1. So this is a little bit of the idea of why objects are useful. I can tell any person to have a birthday, and I know that the effect is going to be that their age will get incremented. There is lots more to objects than this, but for the moment, the two important things I want you to remember about objects is they have data associated with them. So every my person object has, or every person object has a name, an age, and a gender. Objects have behaviors associated with them, which we define as functions that are embedded inside of the class definition. And those methods can just print out information. They can modify the object itself. It all depends on what you write into this function. I don't know if methods can define new data. Let's try putting something here. Let's do self dot told age equals true. It has to be capitalized in Python. I don't know what that will do. Let's try it and see. Nothing happened, or nothing, no errors happened. And so apparently if I ask an object about its print person 1 dot told age, so that should print out true, but curiously if I say print person 2 dot told age, not old age, I believe that will cause an error. So person 2 doesn't have untold age attribute. Okay, so that's unlike other object-oriented languages where the data is specifically defined inside the class. All objects of type class have the same data fields associated with them. But in this case, calling tell age caused John to have a told age attribute, true, but person 2 still does not have a told age attribute. So in Python, you're able to change the shape of an individual object. That's a little interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend playing with that a lot. So if you remember in the code from last week, so I took this scene class, which didn't seem to have a lot of reason for existence that I could see because they didn't associate data with it, and they didn't associate any behaviors with it. So I went ahead and created some data. So I made canvas be, instead of just a local variable, I made it be an instance variable, and I created these other data fields or variables that are related to the scene. And then I define these behaviors for scene by defining these defs inside of them. And normally you would expect draw scene to be a method of scene instead of a function outside of the class. And that's where I started to stumble, is because it looked like they should be methods, not functions. And so I kind of apologize for doing that. But the reason why I did it was so that left, top, right, and bottom would be inside of each instance of scene, and I wouldn't have to pass those around to draw scene and draw sky and draw ground. And when I wanted to know about the height of a scene, I didn't have to calculate it myself. I could define a height method, and it would take care of that for me. So that was the motivation for using a scene object, was that it allowed me to encapsulate all these things inside of the object itself. Just like when I want a person to tell their age, I don't have to pass any information about the age. That's embedded inside of the object person1. So this has been a little rambling. I hope it gives a little help. But certainly if you have more questions, feel free to post them on Slack or in Canvas, and I'll do my best to respond to that. Thanks for watching.